Welcome back. You're watching The Independent Republican. Mike Graham right here on TalkTV. Ryan, Leon and Emma are still with me, with the panel. We've got some breaking news, not just from tomorrow's front pages, but this one from Hollywood. After making controversial remarks at a recent pro-Palestinian rally in New York City, Susan Sarandon has been dropped by the United Talent Agency, which is quite a big step for them to take. They basically said that they didn't like what she said. She said this: there are a lot of people afraid of being Jewish at this time and are getting a taste of what it feels like to be a Muslim in this country, which, you know, she's entitled to her opinion, but they decided that was too strong for them. She also went on to repost one of Pink Floyd's Roger Waters' tweets, and he's gone a bit mad, anti-Semitic lately. So, you know, this situation in Gaza and Israel is reverberating all around the world, isn't it?
It really is.
I think the worrying thing is that there's no nuance in the debate.
No.
You're either one side or you're the other. And I think the right answer is to say it's a horrible situation all round and we should be looking to find, you know, peace in whatever form we can find it. But it has to be, you're either pro-Israel or you're either pro-Hamas, Gaza.
Yeah.
And I think there is a nuance where there are innocent people being caught up in this on both sides. But that isn't the way the media or the social media is sort of portrayed at the moment.
It's so depressing, this inability to hold two views at the same time, to be able to talk about it with some nuance. It's so...
I think it's partly because of the horror of what happened on October the 7th.
I know,
and when people then say, oh, yes, but it didn't start then, it still doesn't stop the horror of that one day, because whatever happened before, nothing's really ever happened like that. And I think that's the trouble. And you still keep seeing the videos that are sent out.
What's also happening now is also terrifying and horrifying. And one can just say, I know it's not trendy to be a pacifist, but what if we just want peace?
Yeah.
We just want it.
Well, we may get news overnight, possibly that the hostage deal is done in some way, shape or form. But, I mean, I also find it very difficult to have sympathy with an organisation that are holding so many people hostage in situations where there are children there are elderly people. I just think it's disgusting.
The key thing is it's not Hamas. You know, they are a terrorist organisation, they are an abhorrent organisation. But it's the Palestinian people who are innocent. And I think that's where the line blurs. And just as the Israeli people who were murdered on the 7th of October, there are death on either side. And when you read the numbers, it's just horrific. But you know, let's hope that these hostages do get released and it will be some good news.
Yeah. Another terribly sad story today. We all were hoping, I imagine, today that these 4 teenagers who disappeared would be found alive. But tragically, they were found upside down, partially submerged in water in the car that they went... camping in out of into Wales, into Snowdonia. Just an awful story. I mean, I've got kids this age, and whenever anything like this happens, when you've got children of your own, you just think, God Almighty, you know, how just incredibly terrible. And I think some of the mothers didn't even know that their sons had gone on the trip. They thought they were staying with somebody and didn't really know they'd gone out in a car. It's on the front of the Times and the Sun and many other newspapers as well. It's just awful,
you can't even imagine it. You know, 4 children, they go out for a weekend, they go to somewhere like, you know, Snowdonia, fantastic, you know, making the most of their teenage years, and then this tragic accident happens. It's desperately sad.
Makes you want to not let your children anywhere near a car. I know
well,
that's silly, but I don't want my 3-year-old
first thing I said.
to drive.
First thing I said. I've got a 19-year-old who's itching to drive, and I just keep putting him off and going, no, I don't think so.
Especially boys, you just worry. Don't
you really do.
Course.
Speaking of other stories that have been doing the rounds, we talked earlier today about parking charges, because this is one of those that always winds people up in a massive way. You know, cash cow councils, according to a piece in the Telegraph, Westminster Council netted 72 million in profits from motorists in the years 22 to 23. Most of the big ones are in London, Kensington, Chelsea, Hammersmith and Fulham, Brighton and Hove. But it's all over the country. They've taken £1 billion, believe it or not, these local councils, in the last year. And even places like Nottingham, Manchester, Newcastle upon Tyne making nearly 10 million a year. It's unbelievable. What are they doing with the money?
I think there's a massive shortfall of money. Their budgets are being absolutely stripped, so they feel they're not getting the money from central government. So they have to make amends elsewhere. And parking...
But that's a lot of money.
I mean, it's an easy way to get money. And,
I mean, Westminster is a Tory council, isn't it? They can't be 71 million quid down, surely. Are they?
Probably.
The weird thing about this story is that you've got the councils around the country which tend to be quite rubbish, but the one thing they are very good at is collecting money.
Oh, they're brilliant at that.
From motorists.
Yeah, council tax, parking,
the whole lot. And you think,
speeding fines.
I've got to pay for my recycling bins, you know, and you've got one message that says...
Or answering the phone.
Or answering the phone, that type of thing. Well, one message says, try and save the environment, try and, you know, don't use your cars and what have you. Try and take public transport. Well, hang on a minute. I mean, if that's going to price people out, that's not an option for anyone, is it? So they have to have public transport that then works for them to be able to use it. So you either have one thing or the other. They can't have both.
Well, there was one thing that I happen to know about in Sussex. You know, Canberra Sands, Sussex Council decided it would be a great idea to charge people 30 quid to park there, no matter how long they park there for. And it's like, it's a place that people go in the summer. And there was such a revolt about it, they had to drop the idea because people were going, we're not paying 30 quid just to park at the beach, which is what they're asking people to do.
I get angry when they have to pay to park outside your own house. I mean, it costs about 50, 60 pounds a year. And
it could be worse. When I lived in Edinburgh, you used to have to pay for a residential parking permit, but there were less spaces than there were permits given out. So even just having a permit didn't guarantee that you had a space.
Yeah.
Literally, it's like the Germans on the beach towels. You're waking up at 4 in the morning with a panic attack thinking, I better go and get the car.
Or you come home a bit late and you'd have to park about 2 miles from where you lived.
But can't they use that money to actually improve the roads? As a cyclist, I know I'll be thrown out when I say that.
Soon, yeah. You keep mentioning it.
Yeah, and all the viewers
Not
disappear. As a cyclist, right, you literally take your life in your hands every day, driving over these potholes. There are roads.
Well, maybe you should pay some road tax.
There you go.
And then I thought that would be. And then they
coming
could fix the potholes.
There are roads in central London, and actually, ironically, around Westminster.
Yeah.
Where when there's a bit of rain, the entire roads fill up with water.
Yeah.
In Germany, that would be fixed overnight. The plumbers would
That's
come in.
because environmentally,
drainage
they're not allowed
would come in, and they would sort out the drains.
It's because they don't get rid of the crap in the drains, and so the drains
They literally don't, and you can't. It's treacherous. You can't even drive over it. You can't cycle over it. You can't cycle through it. Pedestrians can't use the pavement.
Right. Well, do you remember that? I don't know if you remember the cycle lane they put in that was, I think, coming around Vauxhall Bridge.
Yeah.
And they put it in, made it out of this ridiculously slippery material, which was kind of a comedy alert, really, for people like me, but probably quite dangerous for cyclists.
It turns into a lake.
Everybody that was coming around the bend just was falling over.
Not funny.
Because and they had to resurface it. I mean, that's how idiotic they are.
Who makes these decisions? I think in councils,
in London, we all blame Sadiq Khan.
Well, it's Sadiq Khan. Never miss a chance.
Must be his fault.
It's not just Sadiq Khan. It's the people in the councils that are making these decisions. These jobs worth, ultimately. And it makes me so angry because whenever you've got a real crime to report or whenever there's, something that you need doing, forget it. But if they want money from you,
Shoreditch Police Station has been closed. They just don't open for about 5 years.
My local police station, I was in it literally about the same week that it shut. And the guy was like, I'm sorry about all the mess. He was interviewing me about some crime or other. And he said, we're moving. I said, all right, where are you moving? He said, well, not really moving to anywhere, but they're selling this place and it's now a block of flats.
Wow.
And that's like down near Surrey Quays, not far away from here. Yeah. It's just ridiculous. And if you do find a police station, you have to ring a bell. Then you can't actually walk in.
You can't walk in distress.
Somebody answers you remotely.
On the corner, or there's an old lady who needs help. There aren't policemen in police stations anywhere, or police women.
No, shocking. Good story in The Sun, page 29. Just stop talking rubbish. United Nations, who have been upsetting quite a lot of people lately with all manner of things that they've come out with, they apparently are saying that ministers are being too tough on eco-yobs, giving protesters long sentences, risk stifling freedom of speech and protest. This is mostly about the two characters that went up the Dartford crossing.
Too tough? What, they let Just Stop Oil do anything they want?
They started arresting them, though. They've started arresting them. They lifted a few of them off yesterday and the day before. Ryan, tell us the story.
I thought this is... so you've got these United Nations special rapporteurs. These grand names. And they claim, but the long sentences that have been handed out by the courts are stifling freedom of speech and protest. I mean, it is...
I wish they were.
Yeah.
Exactly.
If only they were.
If only they would.
I thought it was quite interesting that Rishi Sunak came out very, very quickly, actually, to sort of condemn these comments. And he says it's absolutely right that, this selfish protesters are given tough sentences.
Yeah.
And, it didn't take too long for him to say that.
Well, I mean, most of these groups disappear when they start locking them up for proper long-term. Like Insulate Britain, you never hear from them anymore because they started locking them all up and they started going back to the M25 day after day after day after day.
But Just Stop Oil, they don't want you to lock them up because they've got foreign holidays booked that they need to go on.
Yes.
And, you know,
Right.
kind of glamping trips
Right.
to do. And
Well, isn't it funny that when they did all get sort of exclusion orders, which I was recommending they should get, like football supporters aren't allowed to certain towns because they've got into riots, they were all complaining they couldn't come into London. And I thought, well, doesn't that tell you where they all come from?
Yeah.
They all come from outside London,
Yeah,
where they live in the shires and they can come in on the train.
It's not stifling protest, because protest is, you know, doing so peacefully, making a point, and that's fine. These guys are committing criminal damage in most cases by spraying paint over places, private property, ruining people's cars. You know, I think that is ultimately against the law, and the police have a role to step in and stop it. You know,
The worst are those people in Bristol who start letting people's tyres down, the Extinguish Rebellion people, who are just, I mean, they're causing massive damage and it could be really dangerous.
But yeah, it's the sheer cheek of these UN inspectors basically to have a...
Yeah, they should bugger off.
Yeah.
You know, get back to New York where nobody cares what you do and you can charge all the parking tickets to nobody because you don't actually have to pay them. And don't worry about it, you know? It's absolutely shocking. Page 2 of The Sun, a couple of interesting stories. The Falkland Islands is back in the news because there's a new president of Argentina, newly elected Javier Milei, who some people from the right have been saying, oh, he's great. He's just like Donald Trump, so we'll get on with him really well. And he's on quite a few sort of memes on social media already, sort of ripping apart the leftists and the wokists and all that. The slight problem is he wants the Falklands back. So I'm afraid there's a bit of a dichotomy of opinion on this one.
And the British government have said you're not having it, and quite rightly. And I think there is a patrol vessel.
Well, it's ours.
The patrol
Hands
vessel,
off, the Malvinas.
The patrol vessel, a new one is going there, but there's always one there, apparently.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah, but I just think... But one
Here he is. What's he cutting up there? He's got a chainsaw. Is he just waving it around? What's he doing? He's just waving. It's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
This is the guy that looks like that actor from the 1960s.
He's got an amazing sort of mop of hair.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if is real. I don't know whether it's you know, anything.
I can't take the mick out of people's hair, but
That's
what
true.
I can say is
Andrew Tate was on against it.
I saw that, but he looks awful.
You look like Andrew Tate. You really do.
Every time.
Every time.
But
It never fails.
It never fails. But I think with the Falkland stuff, every now and then it does crop up, doesn't it? And I think it probably is when the politicians in Argentina need to start making some noise. And
He looks like he should be in Def Leppard or something, doesn't he? There's a slight aging rocker
Give
about
us
him.
back the Falklands.
Exactly.
Some comparison earlier said he looked like Benny Hill.
Yes. Well, and there's another picture of him where somebody says he looks like he signed for Leicester City about 1973 with these big sideboards coming down the side. The other one, though, slightly more serious. Schools to deter trans kids. This is coming from our favourite Minister for Education, Gillian Keegan, who doesn't think she's thanked often enough. Apparently, kids will be deterred from identifying as the opposite gender, except in special circumstances. So that's a big area, isn't it? What does that mean? Special circumstances.
You can hide a lot behind the word special.
You really can.
And I think this is where I think there needs to be a little bit of clarity as to exactly what does that mean. And I think that, you know, I don't know what people go through if they don't feel like they're the gender that they were born. I don't know. I can't relate. But if you're a young school child, surely you shouldn't be encouraged to be making those decisions at such a young age.
I think so.
No, we really need to stop this nonsense right now. We know that trans and genuinely feeling that you've been born in the wrong body is a real thing, but it affects a tiny percentage of the population. We need to stop telling 10-year-olds about what is it? Being born in the wrong body. You don't feel like you're a girl and you're a boy.
You can be yourself, is what their line is now.
What we need to teach is acceptance. Love is love. All of that. That however you feel is fine. That we accept people however they.
Yeah.
We never used to have an issue with trans people.
No.
We in the past, some people would dress up as the opposite gender, and that was fine.
You're absolutely right.
It wasn't
it's all been
politicised
weaponised
in this way. It wasn't weaponised,
Yeah.
and it wasn't making young children, feel they're in the. What's this thing about wrong body anyway? We're not meant to make judgments.
We're not.
It's
We're not.
very,
We've got to
very
go.
confusing.
We're out of time.